Hi, this is Barry here, and you're very welcome to today's podcast episode from WriteCome.com. And today's podcast episode is entitled, You're as Memorable as a Fart in the Wind. Now, I want you to think about that for a moment. How memorable are you? What are the chances somebody's going to remember you next week, next month, 6 months' time, a year from now? I think the chances are very, very slim. You know, if we look at the movie stars, who are at their height of the game in the 1940s, 1950s, if you speak about the Charlie Chaplins and Marilyn Monroes, James Deans, and all those big, huge actors who at the height of the game, they could close down city blocks when they appeared somewhere. Everybody wanted to get the photograph taken, the autographs, and they couldn't step outside their door because of, how many people would be chasing after them. And nowadays, the majority of kids don't know who they are. Even if I mentioned my son Finn, he's 8 at the time, if I mentioned Charlie Chaplin or even showed a photograph of him, I'm assuming he'd probably think it was maybe Adolf Hitler or something like that because of the square moustache. He would have no recognition of the man's face and he wouldn't have a clue who Charlie Chaplin was. But as I said, if people who were at the height of their game and popularity, can suddenly disappear like that, what are the chances the same is going to happen to you? Even if we have a look at some of the things maybe they were lighting up the news feeds 12 months ago, and maybe an environmental thing, or maybe Trump done something, or some big scandal or something like that, which seemed huge at the time, and 12 months later, you can hardly even remember what it was. Even if we walked into your home, if I walked into your home today and I said to you, where did you buy that TV? Where did you buy that washing machine, the dishwasher, or whatever it is? I'm sure you would struggle to remember where you got them from. And, at the time, those stores probably thought they were memorable. They give you great service. They gave you a great product at a great price. And because of that, they said, well, this customer is going to come back and they're going to buy more appliances off us in the future because we're memorable. And yet, all these years later, you probably struggle to remember where you bought those things because that company or that store stupidly was relying on them and being memorable and staying in your mind, and you're going to remember them for the next purchase. And so is it going to be with you as well. If you think about it, how many people come online, hoping to make money online, set up an online business, or maybe set up a second career as a writer or something like that. And you have all these people creating websites. You have all these people coming on thinking, well, maybe I can be successful as a blogger, and they're creating content. Or maybe you have people who have found about the Amazon Kindle store and they're interested in getting into writing and putting all their content up on that platform. So every day there's more content being put out. There's more people coming into niches. There's more people coming into different categories in the fiction or non-fiction or whatever it is. And it's slowly getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you think that that you can be remembered from what you're doing at the moment, if you think you could step back and you could just rely on the content you've created, the books that you put together, or whatever it is, I'm here to tell you that it is a stupid idea. It's almost like as if you were driving a car and then all of a sudden you just lift your foot off the gas to see how far the car will travel on further. And it's stupidly thinking that car that was doing 60 miles an hour a couple of seconds ago is going to continue on at 60 miles an hour. But you and I know that's not the case. Slowly over time the car is going to slow up and it comes to a stop. And so it is going to be the same too with your reputation. You may think to yourself, well, I have put up a great blog. I write really, really good content. I show people exactly how they can do something from A to B. And when they leave my blog, they're going to think, well, that was a really good blog. They really showed me great content here. And I'm always going to remember that blog. And yet, how many of us have done the same on other websites or other blogs and have never returned to it? How many of us have read some piece of fiction, short story, or longer piece of fiction, close the cover and you say, wow, that was a fantastic book. I really was a really amazing writer. And you look around maybe and that writer hasn't got a follow-up book, or they haven't got something else that you can go straight into. And, 2 or 3 books later, all of a sudden then you're forgotten about. And, you may have thought yourself, well, I've written a fantastic piece of fiction. It's going to be so memorable. It's going to stick in somebody's head. And yet, that's not the case. You're going to be so easy to be forgotten nowadays. And that's why I put this episode together, because, in fact, you really are as memorable as a fart in the wind. You're there one moment, and unless you keep pumping out content, unless you're maybe writing your fiction books in a series, or you're going on podcasts or creating podcasts like I am, and marketing yourself over and over and over again and making more and more people know about you, you're going to be like that car. It's going to kind of slowly come to a halt and you're going to slowly fade away from oblivion. Case in point, I remember a story I heard about there was a gentleman in America, now I don't know which town it was, but his name was Alan Jones. And in this town, over a series of weeks, people as they used to drive into town used to see maybe a rusty pickup truck or something sitting on the side of the road or in a field or whatever, but you could see it from the roadside. And people used to drive past these old kind of rusted and beat up trucks and cars and all that, and all that was written on the side of the truck was Alan Jones. And then for a period of time, people used to say, well, who's Alan Jones? Or, I don't know an Alan Jones. But it was slowly kind of going into people's minds over and over and over again. This name was that they were seeing constantly, Alan Jones, Alan Jones, Alan Jones. And the best thing happened was when it came to election time, there was a local election for a mayor, I think it was, in the town. And when people went into the polling booths and they got the slip of paper that they had to tick off which candidate they wanted to go for, who was on the list? Alan Jones. And who got the job then as being the mayor of the town, even though most people didn't even know who he was? It was Alan Jones. And the reason was because he was constantly in their mind, and that the repetition of seeing his mind over and over and over again, it brought on a kind of sense of familiarity that he was always there and he was always at the forefront of their minds. And yet I'm sure you had candidates who wanted to be mayor in that town who assumed that they could walk around the streets maybe the week before, shake a couple of hands, kiss a couple of babies, get a couple of photographs taken in the paper, and they stupidly thought that because they had done those small things that they were memorable, that kind of last week of publicity work was going to be what was going to make them be elected to be the mayor. And yet Alan Jones was the one who got in, and the majority of cases people didn't know who he was, but because they had seen his name over and over and over again, he was memorable to them. And that is how he got voted in as mayor. And that is why I am constantly telling people that, to build email lists. I'm always drumming into people on the podcast and on my website and even on my own list for people to build an email list and to email your subscribers as often as possible to stay fresh in their minds. Like Alan Jones, I know not everybody is going to open my daily email, but I do know that out of the corner of their eye, they're going to see my name in the inbox and they're going to remember me. There's probably other writers who have these websites like my own where they're creating content to help writers, self-publishers or whatever it is, and I'm competing with all those people. But because I'm in the inbox every day, when somebody thinks of, where can I get a course on email writing, where can I get a course on self-publishing books, where can I get a course on creating fictional characters, my name will probably come to mind because my name is constantly in the inbox. So that is why you can't rest on your laurels. That is why you need to keep creating content. You need to keep your foot on the gas. You need to keep doing guest posts. You need to market yourself as much as possible and not let up, because unless you become a household name or a huge celebrity and the whole world knows about you, like those big celebrities from years ago, it's very easy just to disappear and to fade away into oblivion and nobody will remember you. So I'm telling you here today is not to rely on the fact that you're memorable because you create good content. You are as forgettable as the next person, because as I said, more and more people are coming online, and for you to stupidly believe that you are going to stand head and shoulders above everybody else because of that is a myth. And you're going to be like those people on election day. You're going to be shrugging your shoulders and wondering how Alan Jones got the top position and you didn't get into it. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. I hope you learned a little bit about it. I think my voice is actually going out at the end of it. But thanks for sticking with me on this podcast episode. Now, you may see a couple of maybe social media buttons close by. So I would really appreciate it if you could just click one or two and share it with your followers, or just share the content and the podcast. I would really, really appreciate it. So as always, thanks for sharing your time with me again today, and take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.